The topic of today really is, I guess, this year has been a very challenging year for many, many people. Many organisations have closed or been held back or not been able to do the things they've been like to do. And we're hoping that next year we can see a lot of things being done very differently based on all the lessons we've learned this year. There's been combining what I call traditional offline physical fundraising activities and digital activities, because a lot of people have embraced digital a lot more this year. And I think going forwards, we need to start to see the kind of the combination really of offline physical fundraising activities, traditional activities, plus digital. And we've had the great privilege to be working with over a couple of years now with our amazing partners, the sourcing team, and also with Macmillan on the world's biggest coffee morning. So really what we're going to be talking about is lessons learned from the activities we've been doing with our partners and with Macmillan. So without further ado, I just want to introduce who's here on the panel list. You should all be able to see a number of people sitting here sort of in our backgrounds. So I'm Neil, I'm the founder of Thyngs. So I'm going to be doing the Q&A and just giving a little bit of an overview on things and keeping the running order going. I've been really, really amazingly lucky to have Andrula joining us today, because believe it or not, poor Andrula's had tonsillitis for the past few days. So not only has she been doing this, which is not usually part of a day job, but she's also been fighting with tonsillitis. Jill has joined us from the sourcing team. We've been working with her for a while, and Laura's our head of operations at Thyngs. So I don't know if you just want to say a quick hello each, Andrula, Jill and Laura, before we get into everything.
Hi everyone. You'll notice I don't have a background on, usually do, but it was making me look even more green today. So yeah, just sort of give you a heads up for that. Usually got a fantastic background as what Laura, Jill and Neil have got as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andrula. Jill.
Hi, so it's Jill. So great to be with you. We've been working with Macmillan for, I don't know, 16, 17, possibly 18 years actually, very long time. And what's amazing about working with Macmillan is they're constantly looking at doing things differently and moving forward, and that's been brilliant with the technology piece. And Neil, Thyngs, we went out, I think at the end of 2017, early 2018, to find a partner to help future-proof our charity clients, and we found Neil and Thyngs. And so it's been a brilliant opportunity working with you and with Macmillan, and so that's from our side of things.
Thanks, Jill. And Laura, just want to say a quick hello as well.
Hello everyone, really great and happy to be doing this today, getting to share a lot of the knowledge of the things that we've learned and the journey that we've been on with all of you guys to hopefully help you as well.
Fantastic, thanks Laura. So we'll be having a bit of an interactive Q&A with everybody in a little while, but I just thought I'd just take probably about 3 minutes just to kind of give you a quick overview of what we do here at Thyngs. So some of you probably know who we are and what we do, but for those of you that don't, our whole philosophy has been around how do you make all those physical marketing assets that are out there, particularly fundraising materials, charity buckets, wristbands, packs, even lanyards for volunteers. How can you make them interactive and turn them into cashless, contactless donation points? So over the years, we've been lucky to work with a large number of organisations, big and small. But you know, the idea for the business was inspired for me by Charles Byrne of British Legion, who I'd never realised about 5 or 6 years ago how much cash was collected via the poppy appeal. And the general principle was we could turn something like a poppy into something you can donate with, and that sparked off a lot of the activity we're kind of doing. So many of the things we're doing in partnership with Jill and others is actually enabling anything you have currently that's physical and turning it into something that you can interact with via your smartphone. And the general principle really is making the user journey as simple as possible, very, very akin to contactless. So you tap something with your smartphone, you have a page that pops up telling you what you want to donate. You go Apple Pay or Google Pay, look at your phone, and then you've paid or you've donated. That's the kind of journey that we're all seeing and using today with contactless in stores, and we can enable with QR codes and URL links and other things. But the main principle of where we're going, I guess, as a audience of people, is using our smartphones more and more and more to do things contactlessly, to do things more securely, And in principle, all the things we're going to be talking about are actually how you create experiences linked to the physical thing that you're doing at the time. So I don't want to talk too much about things, because hopefully you'll understand the sort of things we've been doing anyway. But, you know, the things we're doing really to help with fundraising includes collecting mobile donations, what I call in the moment, at the point of maximum intent, where you're finding about the charity or the good work they're doing, or you're at an event or activity and you decide, yep, I want to give money to Macmillan. It's quick and secure, in particular using payment methods like Apple Pay and Google Pay, and in future things like your bank app to do things. And a lot of it is about, if you look at the QR codes and the backgrounds we're showing, it's not just about donations, it's about engagement, doing something fun, something interactive. Quite a few of our charities we're working with are doing like selfie experiences to kind of like take a picture of themselves and share it with friends. Key thing again for charity donation is gift aid. So again, using, you know, the data that we've got to fill in the gift aid form, make it super quick and super easy to add the gift aid attachment. And again, Jill's going to talk a little bit more about the physical side of things. You know, you can actually make a physical donation bucket interactive. And it's kind of like contactless, but without the cost of a payment terminal. And I think we all know, particularly this year, it's been hammered home, that cash use is vastly declining. Contactless has become the norm for payments. And I think a lot of what we're going to talk about a little bit as well is around tracking donations, tracking the data. And one of the really big things about all of this is actually all those insights on how people donate and what they do to refine things and improve things in the future. That's all I'm going to say, really, apart from remember on the Q&A, ask any questions you want to, and I shall just go straight into questions, really. So the first part of our conversation is around the reasons behind the success of last year's coffee morning, because we had the great fortune to work with Andrula and the team at Macmillan last year to do some early pilot activities in a very more traditional fundraising activity, you know, the coffee morning. So I think this one's for like Andrula, really. So, you know, what sort of things did you think about and introduce last year in terms of the coffee morning to make it different? You know, what sort of things did you look at?
Yeah, so Coffee Morning 2019 was Macmillan's first ever contact, cash-free, whatever you want to call it, fundraising solution. And I think we started to really quickly realise that we needed to shift the ways in which we allowed our donors to give to us into a cashless or contact-free method. So for 2019, we quickly realised actually there is, I mean, everyone else from the charity sector out there will agree with me. Another payment method. Yeah, our finance teams will be really happy by another way of bringing income in, but we need to do it. You know, there was a stat that I kept having drilled in and trying to drill into other people was by 2021, 27% of transactions will involve cash, and that for the charity world is, you know, what do we do? How do we make sure that we bring ourselves up to the level as everybody else to make sure that we can cope with that? That stat, obviously, we know it's 2021 in a few days, so God knows what that statistic is now. But yeah, so what we did for 2019 was we turned 60% of our coffee morning kits into a contact-free solution. So we didn't want to sort of jump in very quickly and do it all at the same time. So that's why we only did 60% of the kits. But we made our pop-up cardboard collection boxes in our coffee morning kits contactless. So they obviously still put your cash in, but we also embedded an NFC and a QR sticker on top of the box. Alongside that, we gave an instruction guide, quite small, A5 size piece of paper, say this is what the code is, this is what the sticker does, fundraise and get people to give to you that way as well. So it was great. We didn't really know what to expect. Laura and I and the team worked very closely together. We were absolutely amazed by the £200,000 that we raised by the end of it, to say that it was only on 6% of the kits. And we sort of quickly then started to realise, right, hang on, this is something that people want to do. Let's move on into seeing what we can do to make it even bigger and better.
Fantastic, thanks, Andrula. So back on that point, Jill, how did we enable the products to ensure it was really easy for fundraisers so they could actually receive it and set it all up? Because surely it's a fairly easy thing to do, isn't it?
Well, yeah. So I mean, as Andrula said, it could have been quite exciting. All sorts of different items used to enable, but obviously you've got to keep it simple and not get carried away, particularly when you're working on a pilot. and fundamentally the pack was the same to everybody. It was just a percentage that had the opportunity to have the cashless donation set up. So, you know, it's trying to keep things controlled within the costs, but also use the innovation, but be careful with the innovation not to scare the hosts and make it complicated for the guests. So obviously the heart of the coffee morning is the collection box. So enabling the collection box was obviously the route to go. Everyone's used to putting the money in there, so adding to that, this is not last year's, but adding to that, the donation point, you know, so you've still got cash, you can have your donation point on top, which last year was the NFC chip and the QR code. So you could literally just tap your phone and donate, or now obviously you've got the QR, which everyone's familiar with now. If they weren't before.
And they were all unique for every individual fundraiser, weren't they? So we could track them. So there had to be quite a lot of logistics planned around all of that activity.
Yeah. Yes, all of that part of it. And there was a huge amount of learning that came from that actually for 2020, which I guess we'll come back to in a minute. But yeah, I mean, it worked brilliantly. The QR code and the NFC was included on this one because they do act very differently. But again, learnings came from that, Andrula, that then drove the opportunities for this year and how things were developed for 2020.
Fantastic, thanks, Jill. So Laura, how was the platform used?
So working closely with Macmillan, we were able to create a really simple but engaging donation point that everyone would be able to use. We gave the hosts a real-time view of how much they raised, and Macmillan also had access to in-the-moment data to see how the coffee morning was performing, with individuals' coffee morning data available to them too.
Fantastic, Laura. And how about all the data?
Yeah, so the data has just been mind-blowing. I think you'll agree, Andrula, especially kind of as we've delved even deeper into it this year. But being able to track absolutely everything, whether that's, you know, for a gift aid claim straight back through to the payment in your Stripe account, or looking at, are there areas that are more active than others? So many different points of data were collected and then looked at and reused for this year from the learnings that we made.
Fantastic. So has anybody got any comments really on the kind of the big takeaways that you took from last year going into this year? Obviously this year it didn't pan out. We'll talk about that in a minute. But obviously from last year, the original plans were probably slightly different to what we ended up doing in the end.
I think personalisation was one of the main things for us. So in our first year, we asked people to scan the code when they received it, and then sort of very, very limited personalisation. But at the points where people could personalise it, you know, we got absolutely phenomenal feedback from that. People loved the fact that they could say, this is Andrula's coffee morning. So I think that's definitely one of the main ones that we developed pre-COVID for 2020.
I think some of the other things that were quite interesting was when I was talking to people, because obviously I was excited knowing that the packs were going out in 2019 for the pilot, and a lot of people I spoke to hadn't opened the packs, you know, well in advance. So it was like, oh, how do you get them to open the pack and get engaged with it earlier than they usually do? Because some were saying that's very close to the beginning of the event for them. So I think that was quite interesting. And I think the communication piece, what a difference between this year and last year because of what's happened. You know, will they use their mobile wallets? Will they understand what they're doing? Will they get this? You know, the whole thing was like, but actually it was very interesting because the people that you thought might not be so engaged with it were, and the people you thought weren't. So it was quite an interesting learning in many different areas. But yeah, fantastic to bring some of those insights forward. I think the totalizer, Andrula, was super exciting for the hosts. So they could get really engaged and see what was going on. And so, yeah, really good.
Yeah, I think I second that point, Jill, on the totalizers. I think it was so important, and seeing how engaged the hosts were to, in the moment, find out what impact they were having for Macmillan, not having to wait a couple of weeks or, you know, wait for a letter. They could straight away kind of get that buzz of, yes, this is what we've done. And I think that was massively important.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. So, you know, come round this year. I mean, this must have been a major challenge for you, Andrula. Like, you know, this year, coronavirus, probably can't run the coffee morning as you used to do before. Must have been a bit of a challenging time. So how did you guys feel about all this?
That's $1 million question. I don't think this webinar will take out swear words, so I won't say them. But you know, as same as everybody, it was February, March time is when really things start really kicking off for us for coffee morning, and it was March obviously that we went into lockdown. So it was just the uncertainty. None of us expected in March to still be in this same position, and none of us knew in March whether this would last or not until coffee morning. We'd already started to work with yourselves on improving 2019 and having a full mass rollout, and, you know, having more personalisation, tweaking things at our end to make it slicker, to have less resourcing costs. And then, yeah, it hit, didn't it? And I remember ringing Laura that day and saying, right, we need to switch things up. We need to change things. This is what we're going to do, and this is what we want to do for 2020. So how did we feel? I think we felt like the rest of the world, just unsure, but really, really geared up to make sure that we could do everything that we can to meet the services that we do and that we're famous for.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andrea. So Laura, so what did we do this year? What sort of things could we look at, you know, working together on it? Quite a lot of work was done, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as Andrea said, we were already working on coffee morning when lockdown struck. I mean, from a practical point of view, it was just so important to still have that clear and regular communication with Macmillan, engaging all the different stakeholders. Needing to do something more virtual meant that we had whole new teams involved. But yeah, once everything did change, we knew that we had to give the hosts and the fundraisers more. So we updated the donation pages to include thank you messages, images, and even a way to RSVP to the event. There were just different ways to make a personal connection, even though at that point we didn't have any idea whether you could be there in person or not. We worked with the team to provide loads of resources as well for the hosts, so such as the virtual backgrounds, really clear instructions of how best to use the tools that they've been given. I think it was really important to keep things simple and really straightforward to make sure that they felt comfortable using them, because potentially that was something very new. But I think, as Andrea mentioned before, the personal element was just so effective. One of the stats from this year was that for the hosts who did personalize their pages, they actually raised almost double than those who just used a standard ask page. So yeah, it was a journey, but I'm really proud of all of the guys, all three teams and companies, and how everything came together in the end.
Fantastic. So Jill, do you want to say anything on actually, you know, ultimately the byproduct of all of this is actually creating a safer donation product, because, you know, a lot of the physical events can actually be more safe and secure?
Well, it didn't really start. I mean, when we were talking about, you know, what happened the previous year and all these exciting things that we wanted to develop, and then suddenly it was like, whoa! Suddenly COVID was the word, but actually the work that had been done the previous year, I think, has just been amazing in terms of helping to think about things in such a different way, and as I say, keeping well ahead of the game in terms of where Macmillan have been. And so the insights that came back in terms of you know, suddenly we've got people who have to socially distance, and then we'd had feedback around donation points. So how you can donate outside, and spreading things out, which could all be taken on board with this route. So making it as flexible as possible as well, because every coffee morning is unique, and different venues and different materials, and obviously keeping it simple and slick for the guests as well. And I think all of that came through, and you know, it just so happens that the whole world seems to have suddenly gone cashless, and is understanding the technology. So I think it's you know, it's all come together really well in terms of how this has worked. And of course, people really were not so keen to handle cash at all. So quite terrifying in the early stages, and amazing what everyone did to get this to work as brilliantly as it did in the time as well. So fantastic.
Thank you, Jill. I just noticed one of the questions that's actually come up, actually, it might be just worth addressing now, is actually, so how did it actually work? I mean, do you want Laura or Andrea to say, how did the actual coffee morning work this time around in terms of actually what was actually done? There's a fight for the unmute.
In terms of the journey for the host who signed up, the host registration point wasn't any different to most years. We at the start of the registration, we just asked if you were going to hold your event virtually or social distance, but we actually decided sort of a couple of weeks into that we took that option off, because we wanted to give all hosts the same opportunity. So whether you did it virtually or whether you did it social distance, you could have that QR code, you could share that URL, you could make that personalization to your page. So as a host, you went onto our Coffee Morning website, you signed up, straight away you got an email that had your QR code in there digitally, you had a link to edit your page. A couple of days later, you'd get your pack, and inside the pack was a sticker sheet with all the QR codes on there. You could then use that QR code to stick on the posters in your pack or on the money tin again. And then there was regular communications around, don't forget you've got your QR code, don't forget to share your URL, and sort of individual emails about what to do at a virtual coffee morning or what to do at a social distance coffee morning to keep everyone safe and secure. So that's how it worked from a registration point of view. As a host, you didn't really notice anything different. It was us behind the background scurrying our feet to make it work.
Fantastic. So what would you say in terms of any good insights from what we've kind of done this year, really, to build upon? Lessons learned.
I think go for it. I think that's definitely one that I'd recommend to everybody. We are living now in a contact-free, cash-free world. My strategy has changed 4 or 5 times since the start of this year, and it will probably continue to change into 2021 as well. Just go for things, try things, try and always be ahead of the game and try and always be ahead of everybody else. I think we've got to utilise the fact that QR codes are now so common and used everywhere. The elderly are using it, the older generation are using it, and for some of us in the charity sector, that's our key audience, that's who we target. And I think really just keep it simple for them, but just go for it and try it on as many things as possible.
Fantastic. How about you, Jill or Laura?
I think for me,
sorry.
I think for me, it's just about keeping up that engagement and keep that connection there. I think it's about making people feel a part of something right now, allowing those fundraisers to make their own personal ask and ensuring that they've just got everything that they need to share their message far and wide. Keep the connection, keep the engagement.
But I think it doesn't really matter what size the charity is. It's as you say, it's just about starting something and doing something and getting on that journey, because once you've done the first activity, you start to learn from it, because you've got the analysis and the stats that come from that. So, and that's really powerful, really, really powerful. Virtually everything can be enabled in some way. So it's thinking differently, think outside of that traditional collection box. Of course, the collection box is still going to be there, but there are so many other opportunities, and making it an experience as well. It's all about having fun. It's an experience. Raising money for charity is really meaningful and means a lot to people. It's a passion for so many. I mean, they do so many different activities throughout the year. And when we get back to that outdoor event opportunity and all those things where we can bring people together, it's using new ways to enable and bring the money in to the charity. And I think it's just, being a bit different, taking a few steps forward and learning from it. And it is test and learn and develop.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks, Jill. So how do you think we're going to do this in 2021 then? What's the key things that we think we're going to do differently and the key changes we're going to make for next year? Do you want to kick that off maybe, Andrula, in terms of what your thoughts and plans are?
Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate that Coffee Morning was such a success and we raised so much money through this method. So definitely it's my job now within the organisation to push this on everything and to try it on as many things as possible. So I think the tips are from my side of things is and very similar to what Jill said, is start small. You don't have to go on your flagship event, but just start small, and you'll start to get that insight and you'll start to see what your customers want and what your donors want. At Macmillan, we have some very, very unique supporters and they like things in very, very certain ways. And whilst we try our best to kind of meet those needs, we've got to always think wider and think what is the rest of the sector doing as well. So yeah, just stick with it and trial it. I think that's my biggest thing. I was, start of the start of last year trying to get people to try and put a QR code on something. Very fortunate that I got buy-in with our coffee morning team, but you just constantly sell those benefits. And I think if we're in a society now where there are so many benefits that we can share, then it would be daft not to continue or try with it.
Fantastic. So Laura, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's engagement and innovation. You know, I've worked with hospices this year whose 10K runs have turned virtual, which I'm sure everyone's experienced. And, you know, they use the platform to create like milestone touch points around the local town so that their fundraisers could interact, collect their stamp badge, they could share their progress online and still be able to take part, but in a safe way. I think one of our air ambulances have got their Elfie selfie, which again, they built on the platform to drive the social engagement and get people talking. And there's even giant baubles around Glasgow right now that have got donation experiences on them. I think the way we want to help and prepare is just by continuously upgrading the platform, adding in new engaging experiences all the time, and just giving our charities access to more and more innovative solutions so that they can really start to engage with their donors in new ways.
Just spotted one question that just popped up. It's probably just worth you answering, Laura. Is actually, so what's the difference between a Thyngs QR and the platform, or just getting a QR code you just get from a generator and linking it to an existing web page that people have already got?
Yeah, definitely. Good question. So you, as everybody obviously knows, you can go and make your own QR code on a generator and you can link it to your website. Now, the reason that the Thyngs platform is so effective in what it does is, firstly, you're not just sending them to a web page. You've got an entire suite of different interactive, engaging things that you can send them to, whether it's a selfie share or a scratch to win, of individual giving, whatever it is. You've got access to all of those without needing a web team to build you a web page. It's very much drag and drop. I think also it's all about conversion rates. If someone's scanning a QR code, and I think there was another question about this, someone's scanning a code, they're generally doing it on their phone. So that page has to be so mobile ready and so easy. And with Thyngs, you're getting rid of all of your form fill. It's pre-filling, it's taking your gift aid information. It's 3 quick steps, rather than a really long form or a direct debit mandate or anything like that. So yeah, I think that's really important. And there was a question about where would you put a QR code online, and that's why we work so closely with our charities to say, yes, if we're doing a Zoom like this, have your QR code on a background, because people will probably be looking at it on their computers and they can scan it with their phone. Whereas if it's in a Facebook advert, use the URL link. And then what the platform does is then allows you to track the different mediums, how everything's performing, and really kind of get to grips with how it's all working.
Fantastic.
Just to second that, Neil, actually, from a Macmillan's point of view, I think I get asked this question internally quite a lot. Why are we not using these free QR code generators? And the kind of the two things that I always go back with, they are not safe and secure. One day that QR code could be hacked and it could point you to another point. But actually the golden ticket for me is the data and the insight that I get from that. So when I use Thyngs platform, I can see who's clicked, I can see who's then gone on to donate, I can see who's then gone on to give the gift aid, or I can see who's just scanned and then not bothered, and we can kind of figure all that bit out. We've got so much data and insight now to help us make decisions for the future, which you do not get from any of the other providers and the free QR code stuff. So just to second that from my point of view as well.
So Laura, how do you think donor behaviour's changed and handling cash has changed? Because a lot of things have changed, haven't they, this year? Are you on mute? Wait a minute, I can probably get you back off mute if you... Sorry.
There we go, I'm there, sorry. Yeah, I think, the current pandemic has definitely sped up the decline of cash, I'd say. I think this is a wider issue. It's not just about cash, it's more of a generational issue, I guess. There's a whole new generation of donors out there, and they're tech savvy, they're motivated by instant gratification, and they're also quite loyal and vocal online once they've aligned with the values and the messaging of a cause. And I think it's so important now more than ever that charities have everything in their toolkit that they need to be able to engage and connect with the donors in a way that the donors want to be engaged with. So yeah, we do know that cash is declining, and that's not going to turn around. But I think the point of the technology and the innovation is it's so much more than just being able to accept Apple Pay. It's about leveling the playing field so that you can interact with all of the people that you want to talk to and keep that conversation going for as long as you can.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. And anything else either you or you want to say on drill on that bit? Because we're going to go on to a little bit about the physical product side of things now, in terms of actually, you know, the future of products and merchandising a little bit, in terms of actually properly blending, I guess, physical and digital, because that's the holy grail on all this, isn't it? Is how we best blend the benefits of digital with the benefits of physical. And I think we've all forgotten a little bit what the benefits of physical actually are, because although we're doing a nice webinar here, we haven't had all those wonderful things that you get from an event of the after dinner conversations and so on.
Did a Laura? Happy to move on. But yeah, it's just exactly what Laura said. We're in the ever-changing world, and actually we need to be we just need to be as innovative as we can, and not let our imagination stop anything, and just go on and try things. And every charity will have their own unique way, or own unique thing or item, or, you know, whatever it is. Just turn it contact free, turn it cash free, because we've got to do it to make sure that we meet the ever stretch fundraising targets that we've got. Fantastic.
Thanks, Andrula. So Jill, I mean, you've been in the whole, what I call promotional marketing industry for a long time, haven't you? In terms of, you know, all different products and events and all sorts of things. How do you see, I mean, you actually got in touch with us, didn't you? Because you saw that your clients were wanting to do things with the sort of things that we're kind of doing. How do you see it all kind of working? And particularly
for us, it's, we're obviously working with the charity sector, but also working in the commercial sector. And we wanted more theatre, we wanted more fun, we wanted to engage, and we wanted a platform that actually can capture that data and that insight and that information so that it builds. And so, you know, we've been involved with clients from things like business cards, so organisations can see who's connecting and how well people are connecting at different events in different markets around the world. You know, we've got freshers fairs that have been using interactions to connect with the students and to continue to connect with them. So you've got books that have got chips in there, and whereas previously they'd have given material out, printed material out, they give out a book with a chip, and that chip gets changed as the information that they want to share gets changed. So there's so many opportunities through to, you know, I think as Laura said, there are so many different experiences that haven't really necessarily all come into the charity sector right now. So there's a huge amount of opportunity to bring forward into the charity sector. I mean, you know, even the ID badges can become your own donation point, you know, simple little kiddies badges, just everything can have a chip in it, and it's just tap and donate. So it's, the opportunities are huge. I think the big area of opportunity was the merchandise side as well. So firstly, outside, everything can be made to tap and donate, whether it's your hat, it's got a chip in it, whether it's your running vest with a different chip that can be machine washable. So there are different chips for different purposes. It's going to be very pink, look at that. Woo! My cycling top. So everything, you know, you're just about thinking about all of the products very differently, and brainstorming the activity, what fits with it. Obviously the materials, I mean, for us as a business, we're all around sustainability. So it's recycled materials, garments, everything else. And I would say what's big thing from 2020 is an absolute drive from a sustainability perspective as well. So we've seen a massive, whilst we've been doing it for a very long time and it feels really, really slow, this year has been very, very different in terms of how people want to think about materials that they use. And using this technology can remove a lot of waste. It can make products, you know, longer lasting with chips that can be continually used and updated. I mean, there's endless list of ideas that you can do. And I think it's just getting your creative head on and you know, just going for it and having a few test projects, whether it's outdoor events, whether it's indoor events, you know, curry nights, quiz nights. You can use the technology for all of that, you know, and add all the gift aid. It's very simple once you get moving with it.
Yeah, it's not a big capital cost though, is it really? Because you can actually try lots of different things out and see what works, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, even, you know, we did a charity night in November last year for Macmillan. I was meant to be climbing a mountain this year, but it all got cancelled, obviously. But, you know, we just had wristbands, and the wristbands, you just tap the wristband and you could donate. So we had a bar and everyone could pay through the wristband, you know, for the bar. It was brilliant. It was really simple. It meant there wasn't loads of cash everywhere. It meant people spent more money. They could use it for the quizzes. It's just, you know, lots and lots of things that you can add on that make it very simple. And also not having to pay tons of cash into the bank. You know, it can all be transferred through. And if you have got cash as well, you know, you might keep that cash and just donate it straight, pay it straight through the platform. So there's a lot of things to be utilised, and, you know, maybe there's a 1 to 10 of where to start needs to come from that for some of the smaller charities or the newer charities to technology.
Fantastic. So we've talked about like QR codes quite a bit. We've all been very familiar with QR codes this year for NHS track and trace and checking in and all sorts. But you know, so what do you see as a real difference between what we've talked about, NFC, which is the same tech that powers contactless, that's on all smartphones, and QR codes? I mean, how do you see that being, you know, as a benefit, and where do you see it working sort of differently?
Can I? So I think with the charities where they've got corporate partners, I think that's a really great opportunity with the NFC. So where you've got collection boxes with a product in it, in a venue, when the corporations go back to those offices or in store, you know, you can literally just tap the NFC and make your donation. It can all be set up in advance, so it keeps it really simple. And I think, again, with the corporate partners, I think that the NFC chip is obviously more expensive than just going for the QR code. So where you're using items, for example, books and things that the corporates will use more, then I think that's where it works really well, using the NFC.
Yeah. So how easy are these things to kind of add into products? I mean, I know we've talked to lots of different manufacturers, but you could give us a feel for you know, how easy it is to kind of add these sort of things into different products that people might want to use.
I think it's finding out what the products we want to use and how we want to use them, and then working with manufacturers. Manufacturers are really excited about it as well, because they want to do things differently. So they see this as a really exciting opportunity. There are different materials, obviously. So you've got metals, that's a different chip. You've got garments, that's a different chip, because you need to wash products. So there's a different application. But really, it's get creative, come up with the ideas, let's have a conversation, and then you know, bring something to market that's different and delivers what the client wants, the charity wants.
And these are all really robust, are they? And the kind of, I guess, sustainability comes into this as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think the world of just cheap giveaways and things that just get thrown in the bin. I mean, the banners, lots of materials have moved into biodegradable. It's less is more. So using quality items, using items that are made in the right way, ethically, not just sustainability, but the ethical side of it is really important. You know, it's about charity's reputation. It takes years to build that reputation as a Macmillan or whatever the charity is, and you know, you need to protect that. So, but yeah, it's I think more quality, thinking about the materials, not necessarily always more expensive actually, but it's just thinking about the materials to use. So most of the garments we sell for the running vests, the cycling vests, are now recycled plastic bottles, towels made from recycled plastic bottles. So there's a lot of materials that are quite interesting, and there's a lot of circular economy stuff going on as well, which is good for the charity reputation, and good for our environment.
Fantastic. So we've got to kind of go into Q&A in a little bit. I was just going to ask everybody just to kind of give a, you know, up to 5 sort of like key takeaways of things that you've learned to maybe passing on to other charities. Do you want to have a quick start on that, Andrula? You know, you've talked quite a bit about what you've done at Macmillan, but what do you think the key things people need to do sort of moving into next year now?
In terms of trialing this sort of technology, I guess it's thinking outside the box. I know that there's definitely one that we've said, please can you count these for me so that I'm not talking for too long. Thinking outside the box, just having people on board internally, selling the benefits internally, making sure that people know what the benefits are, and kind of what the costs and resource saving implications are off the back of it. I think it's something that we've not really touched on too much. It's the gift aid as well. You know, we're very fortunate that we raised over £200,000 in gift aid for Coffee Morning this year, and that, you know, we've got to work close with HMRC, but you've now got a platform that is approved by HMRC and something that we can do. Free money, we all want that. I might pass over to the other two whilst I let my brain think and see if there's any more that come up. There's loads of benefits, but I don't want to steal everybody else's.
I'll let you talk next then, Laura. So if you want just key benefits or things to take away.
No problem. Or yeah, takeaways, I guess. I think one of the key ones is like don't be ashamed of, don't put something out there and not tell people about it. I think, you know, make your fundraisers, your donors feel really comfortable with what they're doing. You know, the first time someone taps, scans and goes through, that's it. They then know how to do it. And with just sort of 3 small iconography images, you can show them how to do that. So yeah, I think really talk about it and don't shy away from that. And then again, for me, the big takeaway is just about connection and engagement and keeping people engaged. I think that's one thing, especially coming off the back of this year, that everyone needs, is to feel some kind of a connection, whether that's a physical item that's coming through your door, because if we can't go to you guys, you know, be in their homes, give them something that they can keep, that they can interact with, that they can, you know, keep it engaging, change the content. Yeah, I think I'll just do 2. So those are my 2.
Fantastic. And Jill?
Oh, what's left? I think keep it simple. I think keep it simple is really important. But trial, test and learn, and really, I would really encourage anyone who hasn't worked with Thyngs on the platform to have a conversation around the platform, because it's what you get from the platform, for me, that is so powerful. Yeah, just get started. If you're not in this space, you haven't tested already, this is definitely the time to do it. You know, it's going to be a really challenging year again next year. We know it is. The first quarter is going to be really tough. The charities are desperate to raise as much funds as possible. So engage with this technology, because there are so many advantages and benefits. And actually make sure you're really crystal. And I know Andrew and the team spent huge amounts of time really understanding the technology. But it is hard to get the true benefits across internally. So, you know, engage, bring people into meetings to share all the insight, to share what's possible, so that they really understand the value that this can bring. But it is a really exciting opportunity. I think next year is even more exciting because of what's come through from COVID and the pandemic, which is very sad, but actually I think it's taken us in different directions and can be a massive opportunity also for all the charity sector.
Fantastic, thank you. Anything else from anybody else? Andrew, any more thoughts before I get into Q&A? Shaking heads. So Alice may pop back up again, hopefully, video call and mute. I think we've both been looking through the questions, but did you just want to quickly run through the ones that have come up that we haven't answered?
Yeah, definitely. No, well, first of all, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of you, Neil, Jill, Andrula and Laura, for a really brilliant Q&A. I hope all of you have enjoyed what we had lined up for you. And now it's time to have some more of your questions answered. And thank you so much for sending them in and really engaging with the webinar. We've had some fantastic questions. So this one's for Andrula. So could you further explain how a virtual coffee morning would work? So for example, where would you put QR stickers if you're doing it virtually?
Oh, mute.
Yeah, so I think Laura covered it slightly before, but it's the virtual background. So we provided people with their own unique virtual background. They didn't need to go away and use the QR image and copy and paste it and put it onto a background. We gave them that. Thyngs gave us that capability to be able to email them out. So virtual coffee mornings were quizzes. They were just get-togethers. There were people actually physically, you know, we've got some photos of people physically just all turning up with a cup of tea, having a chat. the host would have the QR code in the corner, or afterwards they would share the URL. We did see this year that more people donated via the URL rather than scanning the QR code, but that was natural because most of the events were virtual. By September, we were limited to 6 people together at a time. So we did see that the use of QR code wasn't as high as the use of QRL, but that was expected. And either way that people used them, it meant that they're still donated via them. So yeah, that's the way that we ran a virtual coffee morning.
Thanks,
Brilliant.
Andrew.
Thank you, Andrea. So this one's for Laura, and I think this is a hugely important one to underline in this webinar. So is Thyngs really only for the larger charities rather than micro charities, i.e. under 100k turnover?
Absolutely not. I think, you know, yes, we work with Macmillan, but we work across every size charity you can imagine. That really is the point of the platform. It's so that everyone gets the same toolkit to use to talk to their donors. And as Jill mentioned when she was talking about microloan, you know, we do work all the way through from micro charities all the way up. So it's giving everyone the chance to use that toolkit.
Yeah, brilliant. So this one's for Neil, so I'm going to spring it around and ask the host a question. So is it possible to set up a gift aid declaration and not require a physical wet signature?
A gift aid declaration. I think all gift aid declarations digitally just require the right tick boxes. So I know we've done a lot of work recently to be compliant with all the HMRC regulations, particularly around the purpose of all of that. But as long as you've got the right tick boxes. And also another point I'll mention as well is actually when we do gift aid, our whole philosophy is to eliminate form fill. You know, if we could get away with it, it'd be nicer to go, tick box is already filled in the right way, but that's a requirement from HMRC to make it, you've got to tick something or do something. But again, we tend to use like the billing data from payment to pre-populate the gift aid form to make it even easier for the donors. So again, we're compliant with HMRC, but again, we're trying to make the end-to-end journey as better, what I call conversion rates, because the charities want to get gift aid. They don't want people to drop off. And you want the right data, and it's all going to be compliant with whatever HMRC requires to ensure it's going to be captured.
Yeah, brilliant. So this one again is for Laura. So how easy is it to update the content for the chips? And is it not a logistical nightmare tracking all the different coffee morning boxes?
Actually going to deflect that question, because as someone that works on the platform day in, day out, obviously I find it really simple anyway. But Andrula, how easy is it to update those experiences?
Dead easy. Yeah, well, it's dead easy for Laura and her team for when I'm forever asking them to change things and do things. But now that I know how to do it myself, it is so easy. So we're actually using in 2019 we had some spare chips left, so we're actually updating all those chips for this year, and we're going to utilize them for something else. And it's just a case of self-serving and doing it ourselves on the platform. And then in the question around logistical nightmare, actually not. Yeah, we started off this year with 200,000 codes that we were pre-populated and given, and we had to then match those individual codes to individual registrations. And you know, touch wood, where at the end of coffee morning now, we didn't have one single QR code that was misaligned or misassigned to anything. Queries come through and you think, oh no, we've mismatched it or we've done it wrong. And it was just a number that the support had given to us wrong that we weren't able to read right. So yeah, I think we all deserve a trophy for this year because nothing went wrong. None of that side of the tracking or the income coding went wrong, and our finance teams absolutely love it now, because if we can do it for 200,000 registrations, we can do it for anything.
I think I was just going to jump in there a little bit to go behind that, Andrew, is actually, I think a lot of things could go wrong, but I think with all the planning and activity and the platform and the partners and people we work with and the testing we all did, ensured it all kind of worked, because it could go wrong, couldn't it, given the size and scale of the coffee morning. But I think that's a testament to all the good work we've all done together to make it all happen. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a little conscious of time, so we're nearly at the hour. So I'm going to bring the additional questions to an end, but please don't be disappointed if yours didn't get answered today. We've got a lot of other great ones. We're going to make sure that we answer every single one of them, and we'll send out a document to you. So I'll now pass you back over to Neil, who will give his thanks and close the webinar. But thank you, everyone.
So thank you, everybody. It's been fantastic to do this, and fantastic for everybody, particularly Andrula with tonsillitis. You can now go back to bed now after all of this. I really appreciate it. So the final takeaways I'm just going to say really are this has been a very, very challenging year for everybody, particularly in fundraising. I just had a news article through that's actually predicting that charities might have lost 10 billion this year. And it was all along the lines that actually there's people like Jeff Bezos's wife, who's now been philanthropic and donating. So actually a lot of charitable organisations are relying on all sorts of funding. But 10 billion is a very large number to have lost this year. But again, the key things that happened, I think, is smartphones are being used more than everywhere. And if you're going to use your smartphone, you need a great user experience, because people aren't tolerant of, you know, lots of forms, lots of things that don't work, or broken links, or bad experiences. You know, we've talked about personalization, and I think that's important for all sorts of industries. But if you get a message that's, "Hi, Alice, we think you like this, and this is Alice's coffee morning," you're more likely to do something with that than you need to go as a generic thing that's just unpersonalized, not boring, not contextualized, not got their own words in it all. But personalization is really, really, really important. We've learned about QR codes a lot this year. They're huge in Asia. You know, China's using QR codes for all sorts of things, but it's a very, very different culture. So we've been kind of forced to using QR codes in this country. But again, QR codes and NFC that's in smartphones is appropriate to be embedded into or printed onto all sorts of different things. So again, we need to use all of those. And I think the one thing that we've learned as well is sharing. Having URLs and social sharing can amplify things. So if you can share your personalized page, or your coffee morning, your activity, or your selfie, or your photo, or whatever it kind of be with your friends, they're more likely to engage with you and help the charity that you're supporting to do more things with. And I think Jill's reinforced this as well, is actually we're going to be lucky enough, touch wood, next year to be going back to be able to do physical events, whether that's things at football stadiums or excuse me, venues, or retail stores, or shows, or, you know, back in the offices again. Physical's going to come back again, and it's going to be really, really important we make the best use of all that physical comeback and actually try different things out and see what works. So all of those things I just wanted to talk about, to say thank you very much to everybody that's joined in. Thank you hugely to Jill, Laura, and Andrula for joining in, and you, Alice, for the Q&A. And as Alice says, we'll be following up with some takeaways and some things. And then if anybody's got any questions or wants to get back in touch with us, you know where we are, and look forward to talking to you. And just to say, I guess, have a good Christmas, stay safe, and have a good new year as well, everybody. Thank you.